Tim? Right, hi everybody.
Hi.
Well, hello to everybody in the room here. It's St. John's Methodist Church here in Settle. I've got to say, one of the most beautiful churches I think I've been to. How modern is this? It's absolutely beautiful. So I'm looking out of the back of the church here onto something magnificent. Great view, isn't it? You're so really lucky. Yeah, and you're always looking this way, so you see this lovely view here, this gorgeous cross. So I feel very lucky to be here tonight. Thank you very much for inviting me. So hello to everybody in the room, and hello to everybody who's joining us on Zoom. So I just hope that this works, because I'm talking to people in the room and I'm talking to people on Zoom. So if people can't hear us, or they want me to repeat something or whatever, just give us a shout. But just to let you know that this whole presentation is being recorded. So if you want to see it again, or if you want to share it with other people, you can always request the recording and you can watch it again at a later time. If somebody, yeah, how do you request it? I would imagine Kim will get the link, because you'll. Okay, so that'll be on the Facebook page or a YouTube link, but Tim will make sure that you get a copy of the recording if you request one. Yeah. So if you want one, Tim needs your email address and he can send it to you. So thank you ever so much for inviting me here. I'm Fiona and I work for a great charity, Dementia Forward. And I'm just going to go through this presentation by telling you a little bit about Dementia Forward, who we are, because we are relatively new to your area, but we're doing lots of really great work. So we want to do the most that we possibly can in this area, and we can only do more if we kind of tell people who we are and what we're doing, and then we kind of get your help to get the word out there, so people who need our support can actually get it. So at Dementia Forward, who are we? We are a local charity and we are only operating out of North Yorkshire. So we are a breakaway charity from the Alzheimer Society. So my boss, Jill Quinn, she used to work for the Alzheimer Society around about 10 years ago. And national charities are absolutely great, but she thought that when it came to dementia, you really needed to have local support. You had to have that local element to be able to properly support somebody who's living with dementia, because it's really important that you actually know the person. And that is really difficult if all you're doing is speaking to somebody remotely on a telephone. So she had this vision that we had to go back to grassroots. And so what she did was she broke away from the Alzheimer Society and she set up this tiny little charity with 5 other people. There were 6 people in this charity when it started. And she very bravely went it alone. And she started in Harrogate in Ripon area. And the stuff that she did was so great and became so well recognised that the charity grew, and then it grew, and then it grew. And here we are 10 years later, and we now have the contract for dementia support, the commission contract for the whole of North Yorkshire. So we've beaten off every competition for funding for dementia support in the whole of the North Yorkshire area, which I think just says quite a lot about what we do. So I'm just going to tell you as well about how we are different from other charities. One is that we've kept ourselves relatively small. And I say that with a touch of irony, because North Yorkshire is not that small, is it? In fact, we've worked out that North Yorkshire is actually the size of Belgium, believe it or not. So we actually operate in quite a huge area. But the great thing about it is that we are North Yorkshire based. So anybody who needs our support, as long as they're in North Yorkshire, will get our support. And currently at the moment, we support over 4,500 people in the North Yorkshire area. You might not have heard of us. And there's a lot of people in areas where we've been supporting people for a long time who, when they hear of us, say, oh, crikey, I really wish I'd known that you were around so many years ago when I really needed some dementia support. And, you know, Jill recognised that several years ago. All of our money, and charities are always begging for money, aren't they? But, you know, charities are cut back to the bare bones. And all of our money goes on and used to go onto frontline services. So that is where Jill pushed every single penny that we got. So we operated on the floor, behind closed doors. And whilst that was great, because the people who needed us were getting maximum support, what we weren't doing is we weren't telling the people out there kind of that we were here, the people who needed us, but who weren't going through the conventional means to be able to hear about what we were doing. So what Jill did very wisely, I think, is she invested in me. And that's what I do now. I come out to places like Settle, into this lovely church, and I speak to you great people, and I tell you all about us. And then what we can do then is we can introduce you to the people who are working in your area, and we can then kind of offer the support, and you can do that on our behalf as well. You can push that message out, and then we can get some really great work done in the Settle and the Skipton areas and the whole of Craven, by the way. What do we do differently? Okay, well, we give individual support. And that is the whole reason why it's very difficult for us to kind of do the big jazz hands about what we do, because everything that we do is behind closed doors. So let me tell you just how you refer into our services. You can actually just pick up the telephone and you can refer direct yourself. So if you call us on the helpline number that was on the first page, and I'll put it again at the end, if you call us, you can literally just speak to a member of our staff. And you can do that in confidence. We realise that dementia is a very tricky area to navigate around. And a lot of people, you know, just don't know what they're stepping into. And they might sometimes just want to touch base a little bit and just find out, hang on a minute, you know, this is happening in my family. We're not really too sure what to do about it. We don't know whether we want to access your charity or not. Can you just tell me a little bit more? I don't want to give you my name. Just talk to me. And you can do that. There's no obligation for you to actually fill in any forms or tell us who you are. We will still give advice over the phone to whoever wants to ring us. You do not have to have a dementia diagnosis to actually get our support, because we realise that there's a lot of people who do not have a dementia diagnosis for a very long time for a variety of reasons. So in the years or so that it can take for you to officially go through all those channels and get a diagnosis, you can still be being supported by us. And in fact, we can help you to navigate your way through that system, which can sometimes be quite complicated. If you decide that you do want to refer into our services, well, then you speak to our lovely helpline staff. They will take all of your details and you will be contacted by a dementia support advisor. A dementia support advisor is somebody who is specialised in dementia. And what they do is they will come out to your house if that's what you want them to do. And we think that this is probably the best way to support. They will come out to your house and they will sit with you and they will talk through what's happening and what you need. Because it's just really important for us to know where you live, who you live with, what support you've got already, what you need, what infrastructure do you have around you? Because North Yorkshire, you've got your huge rural areas as well as your very busy inner city centres. And we know that things are different, aren't they, depending on where you live. So we need to come out and find out what it is you're going through and what it is that you need. Your support advisor then will be allocated to you, so that every time you ring, every time you need to run something by somebody because something might have changed, you will most probably be speaking to the same person because they will be allocated to you. So you don't have to repeat yourself. They will know kind of what's going on in your life and they will be able to give you the advice that you need at that time without you having to explain things over and over again. So they will come out to your house and they will sort all of that out with you, and they will give you tips and advice and emotional support, but also practical support. If anybody's gone through this dementia journey, and that's what we call it, a dementia journey, because it is a journey, isn't it? From start to finish, you are all on a journey together. Usually the whole family, friends, and lots of other people are walking this dementia journey with you. If you come out of your GP surgery or your memory clinic, you will generally have a pile of paperwork, probably about that big, that well-meaning people will give to you and say, you might need to read this. Yes. We never read it, do we? Because there's just too much of it. There's too much of it, and a lot of it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And we don't know what we actually need right now. So what we do is we give you one piece of paper, and that's the one with our telephone number on it, because we will sort all of that out for you. We are what we like to call a one-stop shop. So you come to us, you don't actually need to go to anywhere else. You don't have to sit on the internet and trawl through what's out there or flick through all these bits of paper, as well-meaning as they might be. We'll do all of that for you. How do we support 4,500 people when we've only got 35 members of staff, I hear you ask? Well, we all know that the dementia journey is very unique to the person, isn't it? And a lot of the times when we get called into a family, it's usually at the point of crisis. So people would kind of think that they can do it all and yeah, everything's fine. And yeah, I'm working it out. And look, I've got a lot of help from friends and family. But then something changes and you find that you just can't do it anymore. Something's changed and you don't know how to make it right again. And that's usually when families try to prop it up. And we sort of think, if you just came to us straight away, you might not have got into that place in the first instance, because we can navigate you through that and we can put things into place to probably prevent that crisis from happening in the first place, because we're doing this all the time, every single day with thousands of families. So we will normally go into a family and sometimes have to unpick quite a lot of stuff that's going on, and we'll have to put systems into place to make sure that everything's okay, and then get support systems in and up and running so that the family can actually function properly again, and that everybody is kind of working to their optimum rather than everybody being stressed and the whole family kind of falling apart. You then might be able to kind of do another 6 months of the journey or even a year of the journey actually fairly well, because kind of we put those systems into place. You might only need to contact us again the next time something changes and you don't know how to work it out. So we're juggling over 4,500 balls, but we're doing it very, very well, because the support advisors go in and the great jobs that they do means that we actually put families back together again and allow things to work properly for the foreseeable future. So that's your individual support. I'm going to go at the end and talk about who we actually have and what we do in Dementia Forward to actually prop up people's well-beings. We run a load of services that people might need to know about, because you might want to access them yourselves or refer other people into them. We have a dementia specialist nurse who works alongside of us. She's an absolutely great resource. If you've heard of a Macmillan nurse, well then she's a dementia specialist nurse. So she does something very similar. The difference with dementia is that dementia is not a health issue. That's the whole beef that's been going on at the moment with people trying to reform social care, because dementia at the moment falls under social care rather than health. So you will normally find that if you have a dementia diagnosis, there is no clear pathway for what to do next. So you sometimes walk out of your GP surgery or you walk out of your clinic and you actually have nowhere for you to go next. There is no proper pathway. So that's the whole thing with social care. So our dementia specialist nurse, she will advocate through the health system for people who find it very tricky, because you don't get into health. Because we all know that with dementia, there is no magical cure. It's a progressive disease. And at the moment, there is actually nothing that anybody can do health-wise to help you along that journey. In certain areas at the moment, now we have dementia care coordinators. These are the people who go into GP surgeries and actually track people who might have missed a diagnosis. People who might have come in years ago, worried about the memory, but kind of not having had a proper diagnosis, and then they've kind of never been seen again. So we're in there actively working with GP surgeries to work out how to get these people and to get them the support that they need. We also run a specific young onset group, and that is for people who are under the age of 65. And that's a very specific group of people who are living with dementia, people under the age of 65, who are quite a lot of the times forgotten about, because we look at dementia as being an older person's disease. So that's kind of what we do. Let me just go on to the next slide and let's talk a little bit about what dementia is. Now, this might be a bit of a strange slide, but when I say to people that I work for a dementia charity, mostly what they will say to me is, oh, I think I've got that. So if I had £1 for every time somebody said to me, I think I've got dementia, I'd be a very rich person by now. And normally I'll say, oh, why do you think that? Even though I kind of know the answer what they're going to say, because usually what they say is, I can never find my car keys. I can never find my car keys. I can never find my purse. I can never find my wallet. I walk into a room and I can't remember why I've walked in there. And it just shows, doesn't it, kind of like the stigma that goes on behind dementia, because people look at it as being typically that you forget. And so that's the reason why I think dementia, when you talk about dementia with people, that they can find humor in it. They will actually sometimes laugh about the fact like, oh, I think I've got dementia. Now, they would never say that about another terminal, life-limiting illness. Nobody would joke about it, but people feel quite happy to do that with dementia because they think that's just the forgetting thing. Now, anybody who's lived with anybody with dementia knows that it's not just the forgetting thing. However, if we go into supporting somebody who's living with dementia and all we're thinking about is that they're going to start forgetting stuff, we're missing a trick to support them the best way that we possibly can. So I put the picture of the car on here. Well, actually, whilst we're on here, let's just do a little bit of a hands up, if you like. So hands up anybody who in the last week has lost their car keys or their purse or their wallet, or they've walked into a room and have forgotten what they've walked in there for. Every hand is up. Chris, is your hand up? I think you're.
I remember losing them.
So that's everybody, isn't it? And that's because like it's not a forgetting thing, because if it was what it was, we'd all have it. Now I've put the car on there because my dad's got Alzheimer's and he was diagnosed about 2 years ago. And the reason why we recognised that my dad was having issues was because he forgot how to drive. So my dad, who drove for a living and in any other way of his life, seemed absolutely perfectly fine. My parents were living in Durham at the time. I was living in York, me and my brother and sister, and we would ring up mum and dad every couple of days during the week, and invariably be told that there's something wrong with dad's car. Dad's car's in the garage. Dad's waiting for the RAC to come out. Dad's outside arguing with the mechanic because there's something wrong with the car, and they keep telling him that there's nothing wrong with it. And we were like, oh, what's wrong with this car? You know, what's happening with this car? Well, he pulls up a traffic light and it won't start again. He goes into the shop to get a paper, and when he comes out, it won't go into gear, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff was happening. And we were looking at this car issue and we were ringing the garage and we were saying, there's got to be something wrong with the car. And you know what? It took us a long time to realize that we were looking at the car and we just weren't looking at my dad. And when we realized that actually, oh, hang on a minute here, my dad has got issues with this car. There's nothing actually wrong with the car. Once we actually focused our attention on my dad, there was a lot of things that fell into place, things that we kind of like overlooked because it wasn't apparently obvious. And that's the reason why dementia goes undiagnosed and unnoticed, I think, for so long, because we can actually cover it up with other things. So my dad's quite deaf. So if we were going out somewhere and I was to say, right, come on, Dad, let's get into the car because we're going to the shops. He'd say, where are we going? And I'd say, oh, we've gone to the shops. You know, I said that we were going, you know, nobody ever tells me and nobody told me we were going to the shops. And I'd be like, wait, because you know, put hearing aid in, that's why I get hearing aid in, and then you hear stuff. So a lot of stuff was kind of swept under the carpet. We just put it down to being something else. Once my dad had the dementia diagnosis, we were like, wow, of course. You know, there was a lot of things that we saw that my dad was struggling with that we kind of put down to other things. So it's not just forgetting your memory, it is other things going on. Initially, you will notice the short-term memory thing going on, but as the dementia journey progresses, things will change, and we'll talk through that. Let me first tell you about the different types of dementia, because people ask what's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's? Are they the same thing? Why do people call it dementia? Why do some people call it Alzheimer's? Well, dementia is the umbrella term for all of your different cognitive impairments, of which Alzheimer's disease just happens to be the most common. So Alzheimer's disease accounts for around 2/3 of all dementias. Now, a long time ago, maybe several years ago, and I'm hoping that it doesn't actually really happen now because we've progressed a lot, I think, recently, but GPs didn't like to give a dementia diagnosis because why would you want to? There's nothing can be done about it. So a lot of GPs would say, why would you give somebody that kind of information? Just let them go off and just live the rest of their lives without being tormented with having this terrible disease. However, you really need to know what type of dementia you've got, because knowing what you've got means that you're forearmed, and it means that you can put things into place to actually make the dementia journey as easy as it possibly can be, because little ones about it, it's not easy. It's really, really hard. And when we talk about the best possible dementia journey, we're not saying that this is going to be a great journey, but what we don't want is we don't want to have a terrible journey if it can be done better. And that's what we want to help people get through the dementia journey as best as that you possibly can. So let's just talk about the two most common types of dementia, because Alzheimer's is the most common And vascular dementia is the second most common type, and that accounts for around 20% or a fifth of all dementias. So Alzheimer's disease and vascular dementia, two most common types of dementia. Let me just explain to you how they present. Alzheimer's disease, all of these dementias are progressive, by the way, so they all get worse over time. Alzheimer's disease, however, will progress in a gradual sliding scale. So you will gradually get worse, but it'll be like that, very gradual, sometimes very slowly, and over a long period of time. So with my dad, who's got Alzheimer's disease, I don't really notice the difference with my dad from sort of 1 week to the next, because he's been on that journey for a while, and I haven't noticed any massive changes. However, if my dad was to go back to Durham, because he moved down to York about 18 months ago with my mum, if my dad was to go back to Durham now and see some of the friends that he knew a couple of years ago, they would notice a massive difference in my dad. But for me, I'm seeing him nearly all of the time, not too much of a massive difference for me. Vascular dementia, the second most common type. Vascular dementia isn't actually a disease of the brain, which is what Alzheimer's disease is. Vascular dementia is caused by compromised blood flow through your brain, and that usually occurs through a stroke. So where you're not getting enough blood through certain parts of your brain for actually to be able to function properly. So that part of the brain will die off or become damaged. So vascular dementia, you can actually be perfectly fine, and then you can have a stroke. And if anybody has seen what happens during a stroke, you decline rapidly, and it's really, really quick. And it's quite catastrophic. You can look really, really terrible. Now, if you didn't know that that was vascular dementia, you would be pretty freaked out by that. And we have had crisis phone calls into our helpline because of this. So vascular dementia, you can be absolutely fine, and then you will dip rapidly. Now, what will happen is you will come back up out of that, but you'll never really get back to the place that you were before. However, you could continue along that journey for a long time before you have your next episode. So the two most common types of dementia, Alzheimer's disease, very gradual, and vascular dementia in your steps. Two totally different types of dementias in the way that they present. Parkinson's disease, that catches a lot of people out, doesn't it? So Parkinson's disease accounts for about 5% of all dementias, and it's a disorder of the central nervous system, which means that you see the physical change in the person before you see the cognitive decline. And Parkinson's disease is linked to dementia with Lewy bodies. Lewy bodies is quite a challenging dementia. If you know of anybody with dementia with Lewy bodies, one of the main issues that you will have here is problems with your vision. So you will most likely have hallucinations. You will be seeing things that aren't there. So that is really challenging to support somebody through that if you don't know that that's what type of dementia that they've got, and you don't have the coping strategies or the support network to actually help you through that. Frontal temporal dementia, that is where you have problems with the front part of your brain here and the side bits. So all of your sports people now who are coming forward with problems, dementia issues, and there's quite a lot coming out now, isn't there? And we're putting it down to damage to this part of the brain, heading the football, your rugby tackles, your boxing. It's all coming out now, kind of years later, that damage to this part of the brain has probably caused some type of dementia later on in life. Frontotemporal dementia, that is quite a challenging one too. Well, it's a very challenging one actually, because this part of your brain is your personality. So damage to this part of the brain will probably cause the person to go through a huge personality change. And that is really challenging to live with. Right, I'm showing this slide, and it's not a pleasant slide at all. And I've got to remember that my dad's got Alzheimer's disease. This is what's happening to somebody's brain. And I don't like the slide because it says healthy, right? And because I'm a technophobe, I can't change it. But like if we get rid of healthy and we put regular healthy brain there, the healthy brain on the left-hand side, you can see like the difference between the healthy brain to the brain of somebody who has advanced Alzheimer's disease. You can actually see that there's a physical change. Now, I think that people should see this slide, a lot, because it takes away that whole thing of like, oh, I've forgotten what my car keys, because actually the brain is being diseased and the brain is being irreparably damaged. So the brain on the right-hand side of somebody with advanced Alzheimer's disease, the brain of somebody with really challenging dementia can weigh up to 2/3 less than the healthy brain. So you are actually losing brain mass you are losing volume of your brain. You know, when people get to the challenging parts of dementia, it's really overwhelming, I think, sometimes, that they actually can do some of the things that they do when you think of how much brain function they've actually lost. If you look at the bottom slide on the right hand side, you can see the gaps, can't you, in actually the brain tissue. Now, those gaps are where healthy brain tissue used to be. So the gaps are where all the information is stored, it's the connectivity, it's how different parts of the brain speak to each other. It allows us to do the stuff that we just do automatically without even thinking about it. And all of a sudden that's disappearing, that is going. Now, this top part of the brain here, the cortex part, you can see how that has been a lot damaged through this disease. That top part here is your short-term memory. And that is the whole reason why short-term memory almost goes from quite early on with quite a lot of your dementias. This is what we call the dementia journey, from the healthy brain to the non-healthy brain, the brain of somebody with advanced dementia. And we have to walk that journey as the brain's changing from the healthy brain to the very damaged brain. We have to walk the journey with that person, because these changes don't happen overnight. So there's changes at every step of the way. And that's why we are there for you every step of the way, because we know that, you know, you are not from that brain to that brain in a very short space of time. A lot of the times it can sometimes take a long time, and you'll go through a wide variety of changes, and you might just think that you've got the hang of it, and then something changes again, and you've got to learn a new skill to be able to support in the best way that you possibly can. The person with dementia walks that journey regardless. They've got absolutely no choice over the dementia journey at all. But we have the choice to walk with them. And it's a very lonely journey if you walk it alone. You need people to be with you, to support you through that journey. We kind of can make our way back. It's a very, very painful journey to walk, but we can make our way back, but they can't. So dementia support is what we really push for in Dementia Forward. We teach you the skills to be able to do it and to see the value in doing it. And because there is value, there's huge value in supporting somebody the best way that you can, through their dementia journey. Let's just give you a few statistics. So dementia is not a natural part of aging. You could live to be 200 and not get dementia. But ironically, the older that you get, the higher your risk factor. So between the ages of 70 and 80, the risk factor is 1 in 50, and over the age of 80, it's 1 in 5. Under the age of 65, and I've mentioned young onset dementia under the age of 65 is 1 in 1,000, which actually is quite huge, isn't it, when you think of how many people are living in this country. So 1 in 1,000 people will develop young onset dementia. And we're supporting people who are in their 40s, in their 50s, and we actually got a phone call not too long ago from somebody in their 30s who are starting with dementia. So you think at that young age, you may still be having your job, you will maybe have small kids, you might actually be supporting elderly parents yourself, you might have a mortgage to pay, you might have kids going through university and fees and money challenges, and all of a sudden, bang, you're hit with that. So we have a real specific young onset support group to support people who are going through that. Right, I'm going to talk to you about Kitwood, because what can we do? You know, if we're supporting somebody who's living with dementia, kind of what can we do? Because everybody's individual, aren't we? You know, so the person who lives, you know, in number 1 with Alzheimer's might need something completely different from the person who's living at number 2 with her Alzheimer's. And that's because they're two completely individual people. So what do you need to keep your support going for that person with dementia? And the biggest thing is that you actually need to know who they are and what they like to do and what they are as a person and what stuff they need in order to keep their well-being topped up. So that's the main thing that we're doing with people with dementia. We are just keeping their well-being at the highest level that we possibly can. So forget about the stuff that we kind of used to have with that person, because if it goes, don't try and grab it back, because you're just causing yourself and them like a lot of stress. You need to Find out what you've got and to keep that going. So the best way to do that is to look at this. Now, this is what we call a Kitwood flower. There's a guy who is called Tom Kitwood, who's no longer with us, but he designed this Kitwood flower, and he was probably the first person to recognise person-centred care, or he put a label on it. So person-centred care, we all sort of think when people talk about person-centred care, oh, I do person-centred care, you know, because I really care for that person. So yes, I do it the very best way that I can. But are you really? Because are you really doing it the best way that they want, or are you doing it the best way that you want? And if you revert back to this flower on every single time that you're supporting somebody with dementia, you can probably see if things are working out okay. Now, you can actually do this with yourself. I've become a little bit obsessed with the Kitwood flower, to be fair. And I've started to write out my own Kitwood flower, and I badger my husband into doing it as well. He didn't see the value of it until I came across a few things, said it to him, and he was like, oh, crikey, I really need to do my flower, don't I? And I was like, yes, you do. Because quite frankly, the Kitwood flower is your basis for your care plan. All of these petals on here, Tom Kitwood says, this is what you need to keep your emotional and your physical well-being, but mostly your emotional well-being, which is what kind of we're looking at for people with dementia, topped up as best as you possibly can. And I'm just going to quickly go through it, but I'd like you, as a little bit of a bit of homework tonight, to design your own Kitwood flower and to just see how far you get with it, and then put it in a drawer. And then if you're anything like me, every time you think of something new, you get it out the drawer and you add it onto it, and then you put it back in the drawer. But remember to tell somebody that it's in the drawer, because if anybody needs to access your Kitwood flower, well, then they need to know where it's at, and I'll tell you exactly why. This flower is held together with love. So love is right at the center of this flower. And you know what? We all need love, don't we? It's just a primal need from birth that we need love in our lives. We need to love something or someone, and we need to feel love back. We need to feel that we are loved. That is the primary thing that's in the middle of this. I'm going to use care homes just as an example here, just because I've done quite a bit of work in care homes, but there's a lot of people who live in care homes who don't have anybody who really properly loves them, if they are very alone and they've got no family or friends to visit. So they might be being cared for very well, but they're not really properly being loved, are they? So the middle bit of their flower is already kind of not there. Now, you can probably live without a couple of these petals, but you won't be living to your optimum. And then if any more fall off, you will probably see quite a vast disintegration in that person's well-being. Let's go around the flower a little bit. Comfort. What do you need to feel comfortable? Because when I don't feel comfortable, I can put things right. So when I'm cold, I can put a coat on. When I'm hot, I can take my coat off. If I'm hungry, I just go and make myself a sandwich. If I'm thirsty, I can get myself a drink. All that sort of stuff. I can actually sort out my own comfort. But if you're at the whim of somebody else, I'm a really cold person, and I've actually been at the buildings before with a load of blokes. I used to work in the place, and they were all always very, very hot. So everywhere I went was really, really cold. So I would constantly be saying, right, can you shut the window? Right, can you shut the door? Can you turn the air conditioning down a bit? Can we turn the heating up? You know, can we all put our coats on? And, you know, if I just didn't feel comfortable, I was just like really cold compared to everybody else. But I could verbalize that. But can you imagine if you couldn't? Can you imagine being in pain and not being able to tell anybody that you had a headache, that you actually had earache, that you had toothache? Our support advisor, Amanda, said to me once, if I ever go into somebody's home and they say he's changed over the last couple of days, there's something not right, he's really agitated, just as the first thing I always say is give him a couple of paracetamol, give them a couple of ibuprofen, and just see whether it's pain that they can't actually tell you about, because that's a big thing, isn't it, to live with. So comfort, what is it that makes you feel comfortable? Because if that means that you just one daft example is like, I hate my lips to be dry, so I really like lip salve quite a lot, and I always carry one around in my bag. And if I don't have one, I actually say to people, have you got any lip salve? And even if it's a total stranger, I don't care, I'll still rub it on my lips. Even during COVID, I would do that. So what is it that makes you feel comfortable? You really need to start writing that out, because you'll be amazed at kind of the stuff that you will get out once you start writing it down. Your identity, what is it that you like to look like? You know, do you like your hair to be in a certain way? Do you like a beard to be trimmed? Do you like your nasal hair to be trimmed? Do you like your ear hair to be trimmed? I went round to my dad's last night and whizzed all of the hair out of his ears and stuff. So what is it that you like to look like? You know, because I do see some people in care homes where I think, I just wonder whether you're actually happy with the way that you look. Or when you look at yourself in the mirror, do you think, I'm not happy? And you know what it's like, if you're not happy with the way that you look, you just don't feel great all day, do you? No different for people with dementia. Occupation, what is it if you are agitated? What happens if you're bored? What happens if you just really want something to do? What is it that somebody could give you as an occupation, as a meaningful activity to actually make you think, oh, yes, I'm really happy doing that? Because for me, you know, I don't want to do anything crafty. I'm not a crafty person. I don't want to be sticking things into books, and I don't want to be cutting things out. I'm not a knitter. All that sort of stuff. I just don't really like doing it. And yet people kind of throw people with dementia into all those types of activities, don't they? I wouldn't want to do anything like that. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't. What type of music do you like? You know, if you like to listen to your favorite music. Well, I've sometimes been at the care homes where on the care plan it's been like reading books and listening to music. And I think, right, well, what type of music? You know, because if I hear one more Vera Lynn record on in this care home, like I'll just literally scream. We just need to find out what type of music. And of course, you know, the people who are going into care homes now probably don't ever want to listen to Vera Lynn. They're into ABBA and Cliff Richard and stuff like that, you know. So we need to move with the times, don't we? But what occupation is it that you like? And this is where you really need to know the person. So if they do get agitated, you can look at their care plan and think, okay, they really like that. So let's try that. If that doesn't work, let's try that, because we've got quite a few options going on here. Inclusion. So we need to feel included, part of stuff, don't we? With dementia, that can be quite difficult, because with short-term memory loss, well, then a lot of people can just be edged out of the conversation because you can't keep up with it. With hearing loss as well, sometimes it can be quite difficult to keep people kind of engaged. So having a conversation with my dad takes a lot of effort. To keep my dad included when he comes round to our house for tea takes a lot of effort. We have to base everything around my dad. Otherwise, my dad's excluded from everything that we do. He can't keep up with the conversation and he can't hear us. So we have to adapt to make sure that my dad feels included in all of that. An attachment, that is your attachment to the outside world. What is it that's more than you? So it could be coming to St. John's Church here. You know, that could be something that you really value in your life. And just because you need care, or just because it's quite difficult for you to get out, or just because you have dementia, you shouldn't have to stop the things that give you that feeling of well-being because you feel attached to something. This is what we do in Dementia Forward. We go out to groups. If we work with families and we find out that Jack really loves playing bowls, well, then he'll go down to his local bowl club and say, Jack would really like to come back to playing bowls. Are you dementia friendly? Would you like some training? Let's get Jack back in. Let's make sure that Jack can continue playing his bowls. And we do all that sort of stuff. We've done so many different things that I couldn't even begin to tell you about. And Jill, who's on the screen here, we're doing that with Northern Friends. And we've got a group going on in Settle at the moment, which we'll promote probably at the end of this. Jill might be able to tell you a little bit about it, called Be Settled in Settle. And that is something that where we're going to really push to make Settle a dementia friendly place to come. So I'm just going to give you like a little bit of an example of this kitwood flower, just to show you how important it is. I was on a holiday about a year ago with my husband, and my husband gets up really early for work. So he's out of the door before I get up. But of course, because we were on holiday and we were in our caravan because it was COVID and we couldn't go anywhere else, he said, would you like some toast for your breakfast? And I thought, oh, that's very nice. Okay, then yes, make me a piece of toast. So he made me this piece of toast. And when I looked at it, I was like, what on earth is that? So he'd made me this toast that the second it had come out of the toaster, he'd slathered it with butter, put it onto a plate, and then handed it to me. And I was like, there is absolutely no way on God's earth that I will ever be able to eat that piece of toast. It looks absolutely horrific. And he was like, well, it looks absolutely delicious. That's the way that I like my toast. And I was like, well, yeah, but I don't like my toast like that. I like my toast out of the toaster, put it to the side for 5 minutes till it's cooled down, put the butter on so I can sink my teeth into it, and it's crunchy. That is how I like my toast. And he was like, and I was like, you need to know that. That's going on to my care plan. So I immediately took my Kitwood flour out. This is how I like my toast. So what I would like to give you as another little bit of homework to do on your Kitwood flour is think about the first hour that you get out of bed on the morning. How do you like your day to start? Because I would imagine every single person in this room and here on Zoom will probably like it to start slightly differently. Now, I almost divorced my husband a while back because I just thought we are so incompatible. I just don't know if I can live with you anymore. And when I saw the Kitwood flour, it actually saved our marriage. And I'll tell you why. Because on a morning, I used to be so angry with him. He is so noisy and he's so full of life and he has to have a lot of noise and light. So the curtains are open and the TV's on, and then he'll walk out of the room and then he'll go downstairs and put the radio on, and then he'll start singing to the dog, and then he'll open the door and he'll be shouting at the neighbours. And I just thought, oh, right, like, so we woke up every morning with me in a really, really bad mood. I like quiet on a morning. I don't want to speak to anybody even. I don't even want to speak to him. Shh, don't speak to me. But of course, he wants to have this full-on conversation with the TV on and the radio on and the dog barking and all that stuff going on. And it actually just drove me to distraction. And I said to him, I just can't cope with this anymore. We're going to either have to have separate bedrooms or even separate houses because I can't actually live with you anymore on a morning. You're just driving us mad. When I read about the Kitwood flour, I said, right, that's it. You just have a completely different morning routine to me. I like absolute quiet. I don't like light. I want to come downstairs and I want to make myself a cup of tea and I want to do it as quietly as possible. And if he goes out of the house and leaves me in peace, well, then I'm absolutely fine because after an hour or so, I can kind of come round and then I can talk and then I don't mind a little bit of noise. But that first thing on the morning, nowhere. I like a cup of tea on the morning. He likes coffee. So don't make me a coffee, make me a cup of tea. And I like it quite strong. He likes it really, really milky. I actually don't know how we got together. But he needs to know this because if he becomes my main carer, I'm having a terrible dementia journey because I'm going to have saggy toast and I'm going to have milky coffee for my breakfast for the rest of my life and jazz hands the second that I get out of bed. So if you think that you can't tell people that this is what you want, but it's really important to your well-being. That's how you start in your day, isn't it? That first hour when you get out of bed, you just think of what's important to you and just make sure that you let people know your Kitwood flour. Start to write it out. Right, if we look at the Kitwood flour as well, dementia, we've said the emotional stuff takes precedence over everything else. So here, I'm just going to give you, because I realize that we're kind of almost coming to the end, I'm just going to give you a few little tips because a lot of people will say, you know, my loved one constantly asks, I want my mother. I want to see my mother. Where's my mum? I'm waiting for my mum to come. Is my mum here yet? And yet they're 90 and they're in a care home. And they say, what do we say to that? You know, because it's just really distressing every time we have to explain that, you know, mum died years ago. Right, that's not the greatest thing to say to somebody who's with dementia, is it? Because obviously, you know, you have to join their reality. And that's why this slide at the top of here says, whose reality? As hard as it might be with dementia, forget about your reality because we need to live in the person's reality who's got the dementia. Because remember, we're walking the journey with them and we're supporting them and we have to adapt. So when they say, where's mom? We have to act as if, yeah, they want their mom. Now, usually it's not the fact that they actually really want mom, because remember, we're talking about emotion here. So emotionally, there's something missing that mom used to give them. So let's look at what that could be. You think, you know, if you had a very happy relationship with your mom and you're missing the stuff that mom used to give you, well then, you know, you would ask for your mom, wouldn't you? If like you didn't have the ability to kind of know how else to express yourself. So I want my mother can usually mean a need for love and comfort, the stuff that moms normally give, isn't it? That you get that from your mom, probably more than anybody else. So when people say, I want my mother, the best answer probably could be is, tell me about your mom. Tell me about your mum. You know, what sort of a person was she? And get the person talking about mum. Yeah. So you will probably find that they will not then keep saying, I want her, I want her, I want her. What they want is they want to have what mum used to give them. And you can probably get that by navigating your way through the conversation by saying, your mum sounded really lovely. What was your mum's name? Tell me what your mum used to do. Where did you used to go with mum? Where did you used to live? What did mum used to do? Tell me some great stories about your mum. And they will start to tell you about mum usually. Similarly, I've got to go to work. That can normally mean that I'm bored. But instead of sort of recognizing that you're bored and then being able to do something that makes you not bored, if you're unable to do that, you will probably say something like, I need to go to work because I need to do something. I realize I've always been a busy person and now I'm sat here not doing anything and I need to do something because historically, that's what I used to do. That's who I am as a person. I'm a doing person. And that's why you need to know, what is it that you like to do? What meaningful activity is it that makes you topped up with your well-being? Because if your job was something that you really can't do anymore, but you had a hobby that we can actually introduce you to, well, then that's what we need to do. We need to find out these things about people. I want to go home. We've all felt like that, haven't we? I mean, I really felt like that. Sort of, I can even remember that feeling of being a child and having a sleepover at a friend's house and all of a sudden in the middle of the night thinking, oh, I want to go home. I want to be with my mum, you know, and I'm with people who are my best friends at school and we've just had a midnight feast and we've had a great day out and their parents are lovely and the house is lovely and everybody's been dead kind and lovely and nice, but I still want to go home. I want my security back. I want my place of privacy. I want to be around things that I recognize. I want that familiarity. So I want to go home. And I spoke to a guy not too long ago who said that he used to put his wife in the car and drive around the streets and then pull up at their drive and say, look, we're home. And she would still say, I want to go home. And he said, it just drove me mad. So if you recognize that I want to go home will literally mean I need to have the feelings of being at home. I need to be emotionally feeling those things that are missing. Something's missing from my kitwood flower. We need to investigate that, don't we? We need to find out what is it that's missing. When they say they want to go home, okay, what bit of that petal is missing? We need to find it and try and stick it back on there. So communication, I'm just going to really quickly run through this because communication is really difficult for somebody with dementia, isn't it? When you're speaking to somebody with dementia who has a lot of short-term memory issues, that communication that we take so granted when we're talking to each other, it can become really difficult. And unless you know how to do that, you will probably never have a meaningful conversation with that person ever again, because every conversation that we usually have with each other draws on somebody's short-term memory. So, hiya, have you had a good day? What did you do yesterday? Where are you going tomorrow? Did you have a good car drive here? What did you have for your lunch? Was it really great seeing the grandkids yesterday? Forget about all that. If somebody's got short-term memory, they just can't remember. So how do you actually have a conversation? And I still find it really difficult. It's what our support advisors do. At the drop of a hat, they are so good at it, and I've learned a lot from them. And normally, what I will do now, especially with my dad, is I will narrate through stuff. So I will try not to do anything that forces him to give me an answer that he needs to remember. So, for example, he comes to our house quite a lot to watch football on the TV. He's a massive Newcastle United fan. I know, don't laugh. But on the odd occasions when Newcastle will win, you know, I would put him in the car to take him home and I'd say, oh my God, Dad, that was a really great win for Newcastle. You know, they've just beaten Man City 3-0. And he will say, really? And I'll say, yeah, we just watched it on the telly. And he'll say, I haven't watched it. Have you watched it without me? And I'm like, no, we've watched it together. Well, I haven't watched it. Why didn't you put it on the telly for me? And I'd be like, so the conversation would go badly wrong straight away, 5 minutes after the game had finished. So it's like, how do I actually still have that connection with my dad that doesn't draw on his memory? So I learned to just narrate my way through it. So I'd get into the car and say, hey, Dad, there's been a football match on tonight, Newcastle versus Man City, and you're not going to believe this, but Newcastle won 3-0. Did they? Yeah, they did. I know it's amazing, but you know what? So-and-so scored a really great goal from a corner. Did they? He hasn't scored for a while, has he? No, he hasn't. and none of them scored for a while actually, but you know, and yes, and right at the very end they got a penalty and it was absolutely great, and you know, now we're not in relegation, we look like we might be sort of moving up the league, and my dad would be engaged in that type of conversation because I'm just talking through it. And do you know what, on the odd occasion I would kind of be talking like that to my dad and he'd say, oh, I think I watched that game, and I'd say, yeah, you probably did, but we've got it on record if you want to watch it again, and we can just talk our way on that level. Don't ask too many questions and focus on the here and now. It's really difficult to have a conversation that just really focuses on the here and now, because we want to know what you've done, and what you're going to do. So talking about the here and now is just really strange. You've got to learn it. It's like a foreign language, and go with the flow. Do you know what, my dad, we've learned as a family, and we have it as a mission statement now, that whatever my dad says, we just go along with it. So my dad can say absolutely anything, and we just fit into whatever he's talking about. And when my dad comes into the room, he is the most important person in the room. We fuss over him like mad. He's treated like a king. He's the most important person there, and he needs to feel that. I put left brain, right brain there because people would say, oh, crikey, why can my mom sing and yet she really struggles to talk? And that is purely down to the way that the brain, dementia attacks the brain. So dementia attacks the brain not in equal measures. So it usually attacks the left part of the brain before the right part of the brain, or more of the left than the right. So the left part of your brain predominantly, and I'm just generalizing here, the left part of your brain deals with language, speech, hearing, word formation, word finding, sentence formation, all that sort of stuff. So you'll probably find that your person with dementia might lose a lot of that, lose a lot of language, and that's because language is on the left side of the part of the brain. On the right part of the brain, however, is rhythm. Now, how great is a church for rhythm? Everything that you do in church has a rhythm, doesn't it? So that's why churches are really important for people with dementia. We sing in church, we pray in church, poetry, all that sort of stuff, anything that's got rhythm. People with dementia will remember it longer than language. And that is, in fact, they'll probably remember singing right till the very end. It's a very preserved part of the brain. So when your person can't talk, you will probably find that they will be able to sing. When they can't walk, you'll probably be able to find that they will be able to dance, or at least have some rhythm, because your rhythm is kept. So that's a really important thing to remember. So our services, just very quickly, there's our helpline if anybody needs it. And as I said, this has been recorded, so you've got it forever. Remember, we have support advisors who will come in and work with you direct. We have wellbeing cafes. We have a wellbeing cafe in this very building, run by Claire, who's at the back of the room there. We have dementia care coordinators who work with our GPs. And there's Julia, our dementia specialist nurse. I put outreach cafes there because we actually, the wellbeing cafes that we run, if we find a group that are already supporting people with dementia in a bit of a rural location, but they need a little bit of support as to how do we do this better for people with dementia, we can go in and we can give them our model and they can run it themselves, but they will always be able to access us for any support. And we do this kind of in the really tiny rural places that we can't really get to very often, but you sometimes find that there will be a great church group or a real community group that's doing good work there, and we will help them to set up and solidify that so that it's really dementia friendly. We have our young onset specialist groups, and we have our dementia hubs. These are buildings that we own and we actually use for all of our services. And we also have singing groups dotted around all over the place. Thank you so much. I'm spot on time. So thank you so much for listening to this presentation. I have to finish this presentation by saying that we are in desperate need of volunteers in this area. I mean, real desperate need. So if you can't volunteer yourself for anything, if you would put the word out, if you know anybody who's got a spare couple of hours, a spare day, spare week, anything that they would like to donate to Dementia Forward, well then please get in touch with us, because we would really value your help in order to allow our services to continue in this area. In this area, Claire runs the Wellbeing Cafe here, and we're always looking out for people who will actually come and just help us to do the Wellbeing Cafe. So that's just a couple of hours on a Tuesday, is that right, Claire? Starts the 5th of October. If you want to turn up, well, don't turn up, actually get in touch with us first, because you need to go through a process. But if you wanted to be involved in that, well, then you can come along and you can just help with the teas and coffees and the chatting and all the lovely stuff that we do. And we also have a day centre at Limestone View, and Rosie, who was the wonderful care coordinator there, she really needs somebody to help her to do all of the activities and stuff that goes on in there. So anybody who really wants to help, please get in touch with us at Dementia Forward and speak to Debbie. She's our our volunteer coordinator, and she will take you through the process. But it is very pain-free and very, very worthwhile. So thank you ever so much, everybody, for listening to this. I do appreciate that you've come out this evening. I hope you've learned something. If you would just spread the word that we are here and we are available for people who are living with dementia in your area. We're a free service, and you know how to access us now. But we hope to be seeing quite a lot of you in this area. Thank you ever so much for listening. Thank you ever so much, Tim, for the use of your hall, and thank you everybody else for coming along. Thank you. And I'm happy to take any questions if anybody's got anything that they'd like to ask me. Or I've covered it all. Is everybody on Zoom happy? Are you all right, Chris?
Yeah, great. It's been lovely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jill, I don't know whether you want to say anything, or Claire, I don't know whether you want to say anything about the Be Settled project. Do you want to say anything on here about it?
The Be Settled project is
Do you want to do it a cup of tea, Glenn? You can. Yeah. I'm going to hand you over to Claire.
Yeah, so hi everyone. I'm the Dementia Support Advisor in North Craven. I've got to stand here. Oh, you can just see me. Hi everybody. Zoom wave. So I'm the Dementia Support Advisor in Craven. I cover North Craven and South Craven at the moment. And Rosie, who runs the Limestone View, she's going to be taking over some of the clients in North Craven a couple of days a week as well. So we've got some really great support there. The Be Settled in Settle project is a project that has brought a few charities together. So the Place in Settle, which Louise runs, Age UK, and Foscal, which is Friends of Settle and Carlisle Line, which Jill is a member of. Jill came to us a few months ago and said that she wanted to make the Settle Carlisle Line dementia friendly. And we thought actually we could do more than that. We could make Settle a destination of choice for people with dementia. And then we went one step further and say, actually, could we make it a destination of choice and a place to live that's friendly, that's accessible, and that is dementia friendly? So that's what we're doing in Settle at the moment. We are hopefully going to be working with local businesses, with the community, to see what there is in Settle that we could maybe do, change, make better, to make it more accessible for everybody, whether they're visiting the town or whether they're living in the town. And that could be things like the services that we run, or it could just be putting more benches in the town centre for people, for older people that just maybe want to come into Settle and sit down a little bit. Training like this so that the people in the shops and the businesses and the hotels and the restaurants have a little bit more understanding of what it's like to live with dementia, or what it's like to have autism or have hearing loss, that sort of thing. So we are working very closely with the 4 charities to make Settle even better than it is already. The reason we chose Settle is because it's such a fantastic, friendly, dementia-friendly community anyway. We're just going to hopefully try and support you, support the community to make it better. Okay. Jill, anything else? Have I missed anything?
No, you've done a great job, but it's about being age friendly as well, isn't it? So
yeah,
this
absolutely.
Can be for families that have got children or adults with autism. It could be with a physical need or even a hidden disability. So it's just making it a fab place all around. I mean, it is already a giving community, but we just want to make it a much more, if you like, welcoming environment. So people come and spend their purple pound or their money and keep Settle economically good. as well as socially good. So yeah, but other than that, no, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. And you've got to Fiona.
Thank you ever so much, everybody, for coming.
Give you guys a clap now.
I've got some cards here with our hotline number for.
Okay,
Thank you, Zoomers.
thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Okay.
See you soon.
Yeah, see ya.
Little Pip, bye.
Bye.